Alright folks, we're going to start working on our HTML for our address book tutorial exercise. It's going to be nice and simple. In fact, this will be quite a short video because there's not a lot of HTML involved. In the future then, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the CSS to make it look pretty. We're going to do the JavaScript to make it work. And then we're going to bring MAMP into things, and we're going to look at changing it to be a back-end database that stores all of your data, all your friend data, and PHP to access that and to put it in there. So we've already installed MAMP. We've created this desktop shortcut, and we're going to do all of our work in htdocs so we don't have to move things around later on. Okay, before we do that, let's have a quick look at the plan of attack. Got it here, a little sketch in my sketch pad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a container. That's the dotted line that you see, and it could be a container div, or what I've been doing lately is the main part of the page I put into main tags. You'll see that in a minute. We're going to have two panels. These panels are going to be side by side. Panels are going to have shadows, as it says over on the side here. Some sort of 3D effect going on. And my friends will appear here as I add them in this form, is the basic idea. You can see we've got a form with text inputs and an add button at the bottom. We've got heading level 1 at the top there. And each of these panels we're going to deal with together, and then also individually. And inside this we're going to have a whole bunch of these friend panels. So that's the layout for the thing. We're a fair way away from getting that happening. One of the reasons I put them in two panels like this is that when we want to make this responsive for smaller screens, all we have to do is drop this second panel down underneath the first one, and it still works on a phone screen just like it does on a laptop. Alright, so let's get that out of the way and let's start building this thing. To start with, we're going to double click htdocs because everything we do has to be done in folders inside here. We're going to make ourselves a new folder. If things appear a little laggy on my computer, it's because I'm running Windows as a virtual machine on my Mac, and off a hard drive, an external hard drive, so things tend to get a little slow from time to time. So I'm going to call this address book. My strong suggestion is you call it the same as I'm calling it, because if you change it, you're going to have to remember later to browse to a different folder. So if you keep it the same as I'm doing right now, all will be good. Now I can, if I wanted to, right click on that, and then I could go down to show more options, and I can open that with VS Code. But I'm just going to open VS Code on its own and show you how to browse to this folder. So I'm going to go into here on the Windows menu, type in the word code, and the first option should be Visual Studio Code. Now once it's up, you can see I've been playing around with this, so let me just remove everything from there. Once it's up, it should look like that. Now if yours doesn't look like that, it's just because you've got your previous stuff from last term there. You can do what I just did, right click and remove the folder, and we're going to open a new folder. Now this folder's in C drive, MAMP, htdocs. Now we want to single click on address book, not double click it. Single click on address book and add that to the side panel. You can see we happily have the address book open there on its own. I don't need the welcome screen. I'm going to make my first file, my only file for this video, and that will be obviously index.html. Once I'm in there, all I have to do is press the exclamation point to get this Emmet abbreviation. Press enter, and I've got myself a web page. We've done this several times before. I'm going to double click the title document and change that to my address book. And that's all we're going to do for this template. Everything we do from now on will be done here in the body section. Now, like my diagram said, we're going to make a main section, and you do that just by going main. Now inside that we want those two panels, and I do apologize that I've accidentally left this on, but you can ignore what it puts up. It does a pretty good job, but not quite what we're after. Now two panels, we're going to want divs that are classed as panel. So put dot panel and then simply go times 2. Gives us our two panels. The first one is going to be the form panel, so I'm going to add the word form in as a second class. And the second one is going to be our list panel, our friend list, so we'll add that in also. From our design, it's going to space this out a little bit, make it look a little bit clearer. Oops. And up here I'm going to add in an H1, heading 1 if you remember, and we're going to put the words add friend. We're going to do the same thing down here, but this will be my friends, so H1, my friends. We might finish off here in this second panel because all we need is one more thing. I'm going to put in a div and I'm going to give it an ID of my friends. Now to do IDs you just have to use the hash instead of the dot. Now CSS uses this hyphenated system by default, so I'm going to stick with that. That's our list panel. That's all we need to do. Later on we're going to get JavaScript to attach to this div and put inside it all of the friends that we add using the form up the top here. So the rest of the work in here goes up here underneath this heading in the form panel. And yes, I'm going to make a form, so I'm just going to type form and press enter. Now at the moment we don't need action, we'll need that later when we go to PHP. But I would like you to put in a method parameter and put in post. It is traditional to go uppercase, but it'll work without the uppercase as well. We'll add something in when we do our JavaScript to the form tag. For now, that's all we're going to need. Now, I want some inputs. Now, we're going to use quite a few text inputs. We're going to put one for name, name, address, suburb, postcode, email, and phone number. So that was 6, wasn't it? So I'm just going to go input times 6. Now, for some reason, Emmett likes to put them side by side. I don't like to have them side by side, so I'm just going to block them down like this. Oops. Because I use the Mac all the time, I sometimes use its keys and they're not quite the same for Windows, so strange things may happen. I'm going to add a button to the bottom, and we're simply going to say add, or maybe add friend. Add friend. There we go. So now we have a form. We're going to save that, so Control S to save. And let's go and have a look at that in our live server. So I'm going to hit go live down the bottom here. I'm going to wait till it comes up. There it is, it's flashing at me. So if I cross over to here, there's my 6 inputs, there's my button, there's my friend. Friend doesn't look anything like what we wanted it to, but we're going to fix that when we do the CSS section. Okay, let's press on. We'll go back to code. By the way, in case you're not sure, you could actually hit Alt-Tab to swap between things on your computer. That's a Windows thing. If you're doing it on Mac, it's Control-Tab. All right, back here. Now, each of these needs to be different. We need to give them different names. So I'm going to add in the name parameter. And the first one is actually the name. I'm also going to, you might have seen it pop up there in Copilot, placeholder equals name. I'd also like you to put a closing slash before the end of this tag. Okay, so we've got input text, name, and placeholder of name. Now it is traditional to actually put an ID into these as well, but we don't need that, so we're not going to do that. Now I'm going to copy that with the space in front, copy that. Just realized I did my Mac key for copy, so let's try that again. Control C, and I'm going to Control V that into all of these as well. Now we're going to adjust those. So name for the second one is going to be address. So this next one here, name, needs to be address. And the placeholder there also needs to be capital A, address, because that's what's going to be seen on the screen. Yes, yes. This is going to be our suburb, and capital S, suburb. This is going to be the post code. I'm usually lazy and just go P code, but I'll do it properly today. Capital B. And then we've got email and capital E for email, because that's what people expect to see. And the last one's going to be phone. They want to say phone number, but I think phone is just sufficient. And lowercase phone. I've used lowercase here just because it's much easier to type that later on when we're grabbing things in JavaScript. All right, if we save that again with the Mac, let's go Control S, Mr. Blair, and then we'll jump across to here. You can see that the placeholders are light inside there, and if I click in there, I can start typing text, and it replaces what's in there as placeholder. All right, that brings us to an interesting point. This field, the name field, is the first field in the whole form. So when I add a friend, either by pressing the button or by hitting the enter key on the keyboard, I would actually like this to be highlighted and be ready to receive my next friend's name. So at the moment, you see it's not active. I have to click in it to make it active. Be handy if I filled out the form, pressed enter, and I'm ready to start filling it out a second time. And that's easy to do. All we have to do on the name field is say autofocus. Now if I save that and I jump back across, you'll see name is now autofocused. And if I hit the refresh key, the refresh button, or press enter here, name will always have the focus. So that's a nicety, a little user experience, UX nicety. The other thing I want to do for name, and I'm only going to do this for name, you can make decisions about whether you want to add this somewhere else, is I'm going to put in the keyword, required. And that means I can't actually submit this form unless I have a name in there. So we need to at least have a name for a person that we're adding to our list. Now, like I said, you might decide email or phone or something else is also required. You just have to add the required keyword at the end there as well. I'm going to go down and put in these slashes that I like. Because these inputs are unary tags, they don't have a closing tag, we make them self-closing. Okay, we have our post form. We have our, should have got rid of this earlier on, shouldn't I? Here, make it smaller. We have our post form, we have our button at the bottom, we've got our list panel. Let me check my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Oh, I have. You remember on my sketch, suburb and postcode were actually on the same line. Now to do that, I'm going to create a div here, and I'm just going to call it hash ID suburb. Now what I want is for my suburb and postcode to actually be inside this suburb div. So I'm going to cut that. I'm going to go to the end of this line and I'm going to paste it. Indentation's a bit weird, but I think if I save it'll fix it, the indentation. No, it doesn't. So I'm just going to push these across. So now this suburb and postcode are inside a suburb div, and that enables me to do something with grids, to put them side by side rather than one on top of each other, which is what we're going to end up with. Okay, saving. Let's go over and check it. For some reason it's decided to put it in a block instead of all on one line now. That's all good. Probably because I dived the suburb and postcode that broke up that big long list. Now that they're inside their own div, that sort of created a new line, and the end of that div created the third line. Now obviously we don't want it to look like that. We're going to fix it up later on, but that happens in our next video. So just go back to the code. Alright, postcodes in Australia are made up entirely of numbers. So rather than this being a text field, we can actually make it a number field. Now that doesn't change anything really. If I save that and go back, it doesn't change anything except when I'm in here, I get this up and down arrow. Now obviously I don't want to start at 1 and head all the way up to 4,209. But what I can do here, and I'll do it after the placeholder, is I can give it a minimum value of 4,000 if you just want to limit it to Queensland people, and a maximum of 4,999. So now we can't put in values that are anywhere outside of that range. I'll save that and demonstrate it. So over here, postcode has got smaller because we've limited the size of what's in there. If I type in 1, 2, 3, 4, and I suppose I should put something into name, and I try and add that friend, it will say the value must be greater than or equal to 4,000. Likewise, if I type in 7777 or whatever, it must be less than 499. If I type in 4505, it'll let me refresh the page, but of course it's not working just yet. All right. There we go, back to there. Okay, so this is all of the HTML that we need to be concerned with. The next step is to use CSS to tidy it all up and make it look good. I'm going to throw in a little bonus there where we can animate the friend panels coming up, but I'll do that sort of towards the end. We'll get everything working first, then JavaScript, and then we're on to using MAMP and PHP MySQL. Thanks.